Hello everyone, welcome to the Bodhi Academy. In today's video, we will continue with the class 11 second chapter, that is biological classification. So in the last class, we have learnt about what is classification and why it is important. Then we have learnt about the 5 kingdom classification, which was given by R.H. Whittaker. Then the 5 kingdoms were Monera, Protista, Fungi, Plantae and Animalia. So we had discussed about the kingdom Monera, which mainly consisted bacteria as the sole members. Then we had seen that the bacteria are divided into 2 types, that is archibacteria and eubacteria, or the true bacteria. Then we had started with the kingdom Protista, all the single cell organism that came under this kingdom, and we had already talked about chrysophytes. So today we will learn what are dinoflagellates, euglenoids, slime molds and protozoans. So kingdom Protista, now as we have already seen that it comprises of single celled eukaryotes, and it forms a link between plants, animals and fungi. Okay, so these will have some characteristics from all these groups. Then the first type that we saw were chrysophytes, that is we had seen the examples diatoms and golden algae or the desmids. So these are fresh or marine water. Then they are photosynthetic and they are very minute, that is microscopic planktons. The cell wall have cilia which makes it indestructible, and the cell walls overlaps to fit together like a soap box. Then the accumulation of these diatomaceous earth, that is gritty soil, is formed over generations or many years. Then this diatomaceous earth is used in polishing or filtration of oils and serums. So this is all about the chrysophytes, that is the diatoms or the desmids. Then the next group in the kingdom Protista that we are going to learn today are dinoflagellates. So dinoflagellates are marine, then they have photosynthetic cell wall and has a stiff chlorocellulose plates. Okay, so they are found in the marine water, that is the sea water. Then they have photosynthetic cell wall. Okay, so they are autotrophs and they are able to produce their own food, and they have a stiff cellulose plates. Okay, then dinoflagellates mean having 2 flagella. Okay, so this is a character of these organisms. One is longitudinal and the other is transverse in a furrow between the wall plates. Okay, so let us see the diagram here. So this is, and the first one is an example of a dinoflagellate, and it has 2 flagella or flagellum. One is longitudinal and other is transverse in a furrow between the wall plates. So this is one and the other one is somewhere here. Okay, so it has 2 flagellum. Then example are goniolix multiples rapidly and makes sea appear red. So we have seen the pictures of red tides, right? So these are because of these protists which multiply rapidly and makes the sea looks like red color. These also produce toxins which kill the marine animals. Okay, so these are toxic to the marine animals. Then the second types are the euglenoids. Here we can see an example. This is euglena, okay, which is a euglenoid. So these are found in stagnant fresh water. So these are freshwater protists. They have protein rich layer which makes the body flexible. Okay, so they have a flexible body because of the protein rich layer. Then they are photosynthetic in presence of sunlight but become heterotroph if they do not get sunlight. Okay, so when the sunlight is available to them, they are photosynthetic, that is they can prepare their own food. But when the sunlight do not reach them, or if they don't get sunlight, they will become heterotrophs. Okay, so they have mixotrophic nutrition. Okay, they can use both. One example is euglena, the diagram we can see here. Then the next class in the kingdom Protista is slime molds. So slime molds are saprotrophic protists. Okay, so they are feeding on the dead organism. So this is an example of a slime mold. So under suitable conditions, form an aggregates called plasmodium. Okay, under suitable conditions, they will form an aggregate that is called as plasmodium, and which grows on the decaying twigs and leaves. So they are feeding on the decaying twigs and leaves. Okay, since they are saprophytic in nature. Then during unfavorable condition, this plasmodium differentiate and forms fruiting bodies bearing spores at their tips. Okay, so when the conditions are unfavorable, this plasmodium, the aggregate which is there, it will differentiate into fruiting bodies and it will bear the spores at their tips. The spores have true walls which are extremely resistant and survive for many years and are dispersed by air current. So the spores which are formed, so this is a means of survival. Okay, when the conditions are unfavorable, the organism will try and adopt a different phase through which it can survive. So this organism will form spores which will have true walls which are very resistant, and they can survive for many years, and they are spread or dispersed by air. So this is all about the slime molds. Then the next type is protozoans. So all protozoans are heterotrophs. Okay, so they do not prepare their own food, they depend on other organisms as their source of food. So they live as predators or parasites. Predators means they kill other organisms and feed on it, or parasites meaning they take a host and they feed or take up the nutrient from this host. So they have four major groups. The first one is the amoeboids. So we know the example amoeba. Now these catch prey using the pseudopodia. Now if this is an amoeba, these are the pseudopodia, right? These are the pseudopodia or the fake legs. Now this will extend if there is some organism or prey. So these will extend and take it inside, and then it will digest this organism. So they catch prey using pseudopodia. Example amoeba. Ant amoeba are parasites. Okay, so ant amoeba are an example of parasites. Then the second types are flagellated protozoan. So they have one or more flagella and cause diseases like sleeping sickness. An example of these flagellated protozoans is trypanosoma. Okay, so an example is trypanosoma. Then the third type of protozoan, the third category is ciliated protozoan. They are aquatic and they are actively moving organism because of the presence of 1,000 cilia. Okay, so here we have an example. See, this is a paramecium, and you can see these small hair-like structures. So these are the cilia which are found on the surface of these organisms, which help in the locomotion or the movement. So the ciliated have cilia to move food into the gullet and help in locomotion. An example is a paramecium. Then the last type are the sporozoans. So the last type are the sporozoans, and they have infective spores stage in life cycle. For example, plasmodium. So this plasmodium is a sporozoan. It is a type of protist which causes malaria. So here this includes diverse organisms that have an infectious spore-like stage in their life or life cycle, and the most notorious is the plasmodium, the malarial parasite which causes malaria, a disease which is a staggering effect on human population. So this is all about the kingdom Protista. We have seen under kingdom Protista chrysophyte, dinoflagellates, euglenoids, slime molds and the protozoans. So let us move on to the next kingdom, that is kingdom fungi. So the organisms that are grouped in kingdom fungi are heterotrophic organisms. So they do not prepare their own food, they depend on other organisms for their source of food. Then they are non-chlorophyllous hyphae, so they lack chlorophyll. So these organisms lack chlorophyll. Then they have a network of hyphae called a mycelium. Okay, so here in this picture we can see many thread like structures, right? So these parts are called hyphae. So it is a network of hyphae called a mycelium. So as we can see here, this is kind of forming a network line. Example, now this is forming some sort of network. So this network of these hyphae is called a mycelium. Okay. Then hyphae which have multinucleate cytoplasm are called coinocytic hyphae. Now for example, this is a hyphae. Okay. And then when we can form a network of this hyphae, it is called a mycelium. Okay, so this is suppose a mycelium. When these hyphae have multinucleate cytoplasm, so when the cytoplasm has more than one nucleus, multinucleate means many nucleus, then these hyphae are called, now see, each hyphae has more than one nucleus, meaning they are multinucleated, so that is when they are called as coinocytic hyphae. Then the cell wall of chitin and polysaccharides. So the cell wall of these hyphae or this fungi is made up of chitin. Okay, so this cell wall is made up of chitin and polysaccharides. They are cosmopolitan, so they are found everywhere and they grow in warm and humid places. So these are the favorable conditions for this fungi to grow, the warm and humid places. Then they are saprophytic, feeding on dead and decaying matter, parasitic, then symbiotic. There are also symbiotic fungi which are found, which means that two organisms are in association in which both the organisms are getting benefited. So example of symbiotic fungi are lichen and mycorrhizae. Then penicillium, yeast, Puccinia, or these are the example of fungus. Then the reproduction can take place by vegetative means, that is fragmentation, fission or budding. As we know, in yeast and all, budding is seen. Then asexual reproduction by spores or conidia, sporangiospores or zoospores. So the asexual reproduction in fungi is through spores, and these are called in different organisms, these are called as conidia, sporangiospores or zoospores. Then sexual organization also happens in the fungi group, that is by oospores. Okay, that are the sexual reproduction that occurs by oospores. The spores are called ascospores, basidiospores, which are produced in the fruiting bodies. So the sexual reproduction involves three steps: plasmogamy, that is the fusion of protoplasm, then karyogamy, that is fusion of two nucleus, and then meiosis in zygote, which results in the haploid spores. So this is all. Then let us start with the classes of fungi. So the first one is Phycomycetes. So these Phycomycetes grow on decaying wood and are obligate parasites on plants. So they grow on decaying wood, that means they are saprophytic, or they act as obligate parasites on plants. Okay, so they could be saprophytic or parasitic. Then the mycelium is aseptate and coinocytic. Okay, so aseptate means no septa are formed, and coinocytic means they will be multinucleated cytoplasm will be present. Then the spores produced endogenously, the spores are produced endogenously in sporangium. So the spores are produced in the sporangium, and asexual reproduction by zoospores or aplanospores. So these can undergo asexual reproduction by forming zoospores or aplanospores. Then zygospores are formed by the fusion of gametes, for example in rhizopus, mucus or albugo. So here we have a picture. The first one is a mucor. So this is a mucor, which is a type of Phycomycetes, example of Phycomycetes. Then the next type is Ascomycetes. Okay, now these are also known as sac fungi. So here we have an example of Ascomycetes. So Aspergillus, this is an example of Ascomycetes, and this is Aspergillus. So these are saprophytic, that is they are decomposers, saprophytic decomposers, parasitics or coprophilous, okay, which grow on the dung. Then their mycelium are branched and septate. So the mycelium, the network of hyphae which is there, is branched. Then asexual spores called conidia produced exogenously on the conidiospores. Now as we can see here, the spores are formed exogenously on the conidiospore. Then sexual spores are called ascospores, produced endogenously in ascus, which are produced inside the fruiting body called the ascocarp. So in Ascomycetes, the fruiting body is called ascocarp, and the spores, that is the ascospores, are formed endogenously inside the in these organisms. So examples are Aspergillus, Neurospora, Saccharomyces, that is unicellular fungi, and so on. Then another, the third type are the Basidiomycetes. So in this we have the example Agaricus. So these are the Basidiomycetes. Okay, an example is Agaricus. So this is a picture of Agaricus. Now in Basidiomycetes, the mycelium septate. The mycelium is septate and branched. Okay, so it is branched. Then generally asexual spores are not found. So generally these do not produce the asexual spores. Vegetative reproduction is by fragmentation. Okay, so vegetative reproduction is observed in basidiomycetes, which is by fragmentation, and then sexual reproduction by fusion of vegetative and somatic cells to form a basidium produced in basidiocarp. So the sexual reproduction is by fusion of the vegetative and the somatic cells, which forms the basidium, which is produced in the basidiocarp. So then the basidium produces 4 basidiospores exogenously after meiosis. Okay. Then this basidium which is there, it will produce the basidiospores. An example is agaricus, astillego and Puccinia. Then the last type are the deuteromycetes. These are also called as fungi imperfecti, as the sexual form is not known for them. Okay, so the sexual form is not known for them. Once sexual form is discovered, the member is moved to ascomycetes or basidiomycetes. Okay, so the fungi which are there in the deuteromycetes, they do not undergo sexual reproduction, and once such a sexual form is seen, these members are moved to either ascomycetes or the basidiomycetes. So here also the mycelium is septate and branched. They are saprophytic, parasitic or decomposers. An example is Alternaria or Trichoderma. So these are the common organisms or the fungi which we have heard about. Then Coleotrichum is also another example of these deuteromycetes. So this is all in today's video. In the next class we will learn about kingdom Plantae, kingdom Animalia and the virus, viroids, prions and lichens. So this is all. Thank you for watching my video. Please like, share and subscribe to the Bodhi Academy.